Thank you, Madam Mayor. We are recording.
Thank you. Good evening. I'll call to order the regular council meeting for Tuesday, July 11th, 2023. Is there any public input as the meeting is open to statements from no more than 5 members of the public of no more than 2 minutes length each?
Keep this to 2 minutes. I just smelling the smoke and hearing the helicopters. And right now in Area B, we have a fire in the Chore to the south, South Highway 12, Amma Creek to the north, Ridge River, 2 on Anderson Lake, Texas Creek watershed, and the Highliner. There's a lot of monitoring and some action going on, but that's a lot of fire activity in Area B pretty early. And I talked to Councilor Flan earlier today when we were just coincidentally here. And previous Mayor Bob Duke brought a map to me and was really promoting the idea of having a green belt around the town of Lillooet. And I just think that's such a good idea. And it's not really Area B jurisdiction, except like where the landfill is possibly. And then the hydro lines and along, and of course you're gonna run into the community of Teakit. And it's a bureaucratic nightmare, but it is a very good idea, I think. Logan Lake, look how well they did on the last fire. So I just wanted to promote that idea. I think that the fire situation is just gonna go from bad to worse. So if that would help protect this community, that would be a good thing. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. If you comment on that at all? No pressure.
Yeah, which Director Bibinger showed us talking about, Bob Dew came forward, and what he was saying is that in the 70s and early 80s, BC Wildfire Service actually punched in a bunch of containment lines, is what they call them, guard lines. They were hand lines that were all across the upper part of Lillooet. He wanted to look at that and kind of introduce things on whether we could work as a belt around. And what he was referring to is the hydro lines, being that could we take water lines from Dickey Creek and run them all along the areas and tie it back into Town Creek, and then utilize those type of things to make a green space in there. So yeah, I think it is a good idea. Logistically, not too sure how feasible. A lot of manpower, a lot of stuff that would have to be invested in it. No, so discussion with BC Wildfire. It is mainly, I think, a good portion of it is actually First Nations territory, but it does snake in and out in that area. But yeah, it would have to take a lot of green belt area. That's a good idea. However, that's a lot of water, manpower to try to upkeep all of that. Guarded area, perhaps using, talking with BC Hydro and actually upgrading and keeping their power lines maintained. That's a chore in itself. We often run into a lot of issues, and the First Nations are running into a lot of issues of they will whack all their vegetation down, but they actually leave it on the right of way. So it's a lot of fuel loads that's happening there. So if we were able to lobby them to do a little bit more mitigation work and removing that vegetation off, I think that's a good start in there, and we move on to doing things. And we did talk about animal agriculture, moving them into the right of ways, goats, sheep, all that kind of stuff to eat up all that kind of stuff. And it has been used actually up in the north area, using that to veg modify things. It's a good thing. However, you need farmers or ranchers to be able to utilize that. And I don't know a lot of goat, sheep ranchers around, except for the sheep farm over here, but it's something to look at definitely. All part of that fire smart kind of strategies and looking at that for sure. So
That means it would have to be fenced all the way around.
Well, if you could have sheep herders type of thing moving their animals, and I'm not too sure, I'm not not an ag person, so how that would, I don't think fencing would work, right? That's a lot of fencing, right? So maybe something, I know forestry range, they do have programs like that that range in cattle and deer, right, on the major highways. Actually, I've not heard of that type of a program to do that, but definitely more strategies and looking at those things is needed, right? So a lot of discussion between other agencies, yeah.
I think it's a really good idea,
Mhm.
just for the simple fact of what Logan Lake did up there. I have a nephew that's up there.
Yeah.
And that's safe.
Yeah. But it
My
does,
yard is mostly burnt already.
yeah, and the difference between Logan Lake, you look at the geography, right? They're rolling hills opposed to we're straight up and down, looking at those things. So we are doing things as far as our strategies and our Fire Smart program and our community wildfire protection programs. So we are, this year, BC Wildfire Service as well as the Cascades Forest District are looking and they are writing prescribed burns actually for the East Lillooet side on our block. So what happens is we go in, we treat that, we get monies to oversee that, but then BC Wildfire Service takes that over and they start doing prescribed burn strategies and looking at it, and they will actually undertake that prescribed burning on our polygons that we've had. So that it's over $500,000 that we've invested into getting funding for. They're going to actually start burning and treating those areas to protect her. And that's fortification of around Lillooet, right? So I know I've shown you in our strategy meetings, I showed you a map there that showed all of the polygons around Lillooet with all of the communities involved. That's all taking part of that and using that. So it's going to take a little bit of time, manpower to burn all that off, but that's the next stage is retreat and burning. And that's where Logan Lake is at. We're more fortunate that they have wide open timbers to be able to retreat and go in with machines. We don't have that luxury. Machines are just not, most of our areas are just prohibited, right? They're up and down, so can't get at them. Tried these machines when we could, but yeah. And it's the prescriptions that the Ministry of Forests have allowed us. It's not commercial based, so they won't allow us to take off of X number because they're merchantable timber, so it costs. It's then pushes you into the next bracket of forest and taking out forest, right? So they won't allow us to use cut blocks and those types of things. It's just modified fuel reduction, which it's an argument in the whole industry is when is it not enough and when is it too much? So it's a balance in there, right? So we're always arguing that.
So who would be arguing if the Ministry of Forest?
Yeah, well, they're not arguing, but they're saying it's then, are we going into a community forest license, right? Because they have to sell off that timber because of the regulations stayed in there, right? So, and that's been a push. They said you can't apply for a community forest, but then that's bigger dollars, different kind of divisions of forestry, right? It's not the UBCN community wildfire prevention program. It's in then sellable timber and stuff like that. So.
And they think there's a lot of merchantable timber around.
Yeah, that's the argument, right? It's like, I don't know.
Who would the guy talk to about that? How would you, or do you have to?
Yeah, her name is Allison. Can't remember her last name. She's a forester at Cascades Forest District who's in charge of that program and oversees that, right? So, yeah. That name.
I think a person should talk to her.
Mhm.
Get her to come into the council.
Yeah.
Council meeting or something, explain her.
Yeah.
Her situation.
Yeah, and BC Wildfire has a whole division of fire prevention officers now that are in that whole program and they're looking at those things. They're more tied into the Cascades district now than they used to be, right? They were so separated off. But I think there's more kind of, it's starting to roll more because of the wildfires. We need to get.
So guys just start whining right away, maybe?
Well,
Get to the top of the list.
talking at UBCM meetings, right? They're talking about those things and those issues. I think it's going to become more of an issue now. It should, and if council leader can advocate that, then that would be better, right? So.
Okay, thank you, Chief Wakey. Letting me put you on the spot like that, and I'd like to say that would be the only time tonight, but that. Is there any other statements from members of the public? Okay, seeing none. Is there any late additions or deletions to the agenda?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We are adding in item 11.2, since we have Don Darling, the Director of Public Works Utilities for this. He's just going to be giving some updates on public works projects,
What project?
some public works projects.
Okay.
Okay, and that is 11.2. Got it. Okay, somebody please move that the July 11th, 2023 regular council meeting agenda be adopted as amended. Councillor DeBruin, second by Councillor Reed. Carried. Delegations, BC Hydro, welcome Whitney and John Wu. Floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor and Council. My name is Whitney Dean. I'm with BC Hydro with stakeholder engagement and community relations for the area. So we're here with an update for the Seton unit replacement and bypass project. And with me, I have project manager John Wu for this project. We'll take you through just an overview for the project, the upcoming activities for fall, project timeline, an update on the access and accommodation studies that we have going on, the workforce forecast for Lillooet, and we'll go through First Nations consultation and communications, then we'll have time for questions. And of course, Seton is part of the Bridge River system. And here's a map of it here. And then we'll move on to John Wu with an update on the project.
Thank you. It's nice seeing you all again. So talking our last open house, and this is it. This is the overview of the Seton generating station bypass project itself. You'll see in the red dotted line that is the underground rock tunnel that we're designing currently, stemming from the tail race at the bottom of by the powerhouse and moving up towards the box culvert. Of the Seton bypass project, this is the overview itself. The bypass will provide water management system and water conveyance for the bridge system itself. Project is currently in the planning stages right now, in feasibility and preliminary design. This project is subject to the BC Utilities Commission itself, and the target completion for the bypass is 2027. The importance of the Seton facility in our Bridge River system itself, it plays a pivotal role in the downstream of water management from Bridge River 1 and 2 and water from the Joy. It provides operational flexibility for our generation systems operations teams at BC Hydro, operating our reservoirs itself. It maintains controlled flows through Seton and Lower Bridge Rivers, and it maintains electrical power into the local grid here. Why do we need a bypass? Well, there are two possible ways for water to be released from Seton Lake. One through the dam, through Seton River itself, going around the outside from the previous photo, and also through the canal into the powerhouse where the power is generated. There's an anticipated 12-month outage to replace the unit, so no flows will go through the powerhouse. Subsequently, all water will be diverted down the Seton River, causing high flows, environmental and fish impacts, and risk of erosion on the banks. So that's a no-go. The Seton generating station stalled in 1956, a little older than I am. The turbine was replaced in 77. As I mentioned, the unit replacement work will take place in the powerhouse, and the schedules under review right now as we evolve projects through the life cycle. What's happening this fall? It's kind of interesting again. And this September, we're gonna have additional, site investigations, including geotechnical drilling along the bypass route itself. There will be traffic controls, control placed on Bouchard Road for the 2-week period that we're doing. They'll say, why not? Why September? Well, we tried 2 years ago to do the investigations in May, June. We got stopped by the wildfires. So we do not want to be on TV being cause of forest fires in Litton and Lillooet area. So we said no. So we said we'll wait till in September, mid-September to start the investigation itself. There's also field assessments at the same time for laydown areas. We're doing soil sampling and our site assessments there. And again, that will last for 2 weeks. Timeline, we're in the May corridor of 2023. We just completed our feasibility design stage of our project. And we're moving into the preferred alternative stage for design. The preliminary design stage is scheduled to be completed sometime in spring and summer of 2024. And at the same time, we will remit and submit the BCUC application in the fall to winter of 2024. And upon that, a year later, we would start construction in the fall of 2025. And the bypass earliest in-service date was be spring 2028, or potentially, if we accelerate, late 2027. That's our goal moving forward. So, and combination.
So I'll give an update on the access and accommodation studies. So first of all, a thank you to all the people that came out to the open houses and the meetings we had. It was really nice to see everyone, and also the virtual open houses that we had as well. So there's 2 studies going on. One is the LaJoy Dam Improvement Study, and then there's also the Bridge River Studies, which includes projects for Seton and Terzaghi and Bridge 1. So they're looking at transportation, access, worker accommodations, socioeconomic impacts, and business opportunities. And with these studies, we are still having our survey ongoing. So there's a link at bchydro.com/bridgeriver. That link is open until July 14th for community input. We'll be doing another survey in the fall, and that one will focus on some of the emerging recommendations that come forward from the engagement that we've had and the desktop studies that have been ongoing. And the expected completion for these studies in 2024. Definitely heard from communities, housing affordability is a concern, how impacts to healthcare, impacts to tourism. So those are just some of the things that we've heard during our engagement process. And then John, if you want to go through the workforce forecast.
Sure. During the open house, we had this up on the boards and plastered everywhere. Basically, the red solid line is the typical room availability in Lillooet itself, and the blue lines in the bars indicate what requirements we require, and the top line up top is the total existing rooms moving forward. These sort of bridges go up and down are the accommodations required for our projects, which is our Seton bypass projects itself, the BR Bridge River transmission projects, the Bridge River 1 to 4 unit turbine, generator turbine, and a fleet of operations maintenance projects for the canal. And also there's some projects from dam safety at Terzaghi. So currently within these sort of bar graphs are incorporates the sort of accommodations for some of the Terzaghi north of Lillooet in the Terzaghi Dam area. That's still under planning stages right now. So this is where we are. We will be updating this next year. So the graphs may look different, may be pushed out, and may be accelerated, but this is where we are today based on our forecast. Okay.
So through the project, we'll do First Nations consultation. So there's a framework laid out in our agreement. So that's where that happens. And then we also have our communications. So we've done local ads, we've done our open houses, the biannual newsletter, delegations to council like this one. We have the bchydro.com/Bridge River site. And again, that's where the survey link is for this rounds of the survey, which closes July 14th. And then if anyone has questions, they can always email the projects@bchydro.com. And then there's the phone number as well. And we'll go to questions.
Do you have any copies of what you just showed us?
Yes, so most of those materials are part of the open house. And then they'll also be put on the website as well. So any council delegations, once we presented, they go on the bridgeriver.com website.
So you don't have any with you though?
I don't have any printouts at this time.
I just have one question with the bypass. When you're saying that you are going to be closing the road in September for a 2-week period.
Not closing the road.
Well,
Oh, yeah.
alternate
Flaggers.
closing, yeah, flaggers.
Flaggers there.
I'm just wanting to know, are you going to be making arrangements for school bus times? Because there are children who do live down in the roadside subdivision. So that's going to impact school buses with pickups and drop-offs. We had quite a problem here towards the end of the school year when they were repaving the bridge and everything there with buses not being able to get the kids to their homes to drop off. So can that be looked into that they're not
We
impacted at
can
all?
certainly look into that with our schedule, with our project engineers. But my understanding, traffic will not stop. We will have flaggers to just keep control and flow moving. But I'll confirm that for you. Later. So this will happen in September, so that's the beginning of the school year.
Yeah, first day is September.
Yeah, exactly. September 5, well, we should be there in the second week, but regardless of that, we'll send correspondence to you.
All right, seeing none. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for having us.
Appreciate it. Good to see you guys again.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks for keeping us in the loop.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move into public and statutory hearings. Okay. Call the public hearing of July 11th, 2023 to order. This public hearing is being convened pursuant to section 464 of the Local Government Act to consider proposed District of Lillooet bylaw number 2023-011, 2023-012, 2023-013, and 2023-014. The proposed bylaws and related information, including written comments received to date, if any, is available as a part of the agenda package for review. At this public hearing, all persons wishing to speak will be given an opportunity to be heard. However, I do ask that all who speak at this meeting restrict their remarks to matters contained in the bylaw. Those wishing to speak at the public hearing commence their remarks by stating their name first. And that written comments be submitted to the staff table before closure of the public hearing. I will now ask the Director of Corporate Development Services, Mr. Taylor, to outline the specifics of the proposed bylaw. Please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Z23-004 is a proposal for a site-specific zoning bylaw amendment to allow for the construction of a new metal storage building on a rural residential lot that currently has no principal use. The lot is a 1.0 hectare rural residential lot that is not in the agricultural land reserve. It is one accessory building on site that was used for storage with no principal residential or agricultural use. The owners want to replace this building with a new metal storage building that has double the floor area of the current one. The building will not be serviced by water or electricity. However, the building area does overlap a registered archaeological site, so a site alteration permit from the BC Archaeology Branch is required before the district can issue a building permit for the new structure. In the official community plan, this lot is designated as rural residential, which means it is intended to accommodate farms and larger parcels of rural land without municipal servicing, along with associated rural residential style housing. In the current zoning bylaw, the two main types of permitted principal uses are residences and agriculture. Building a new storage building on site does not fit into either of these categories, and it also exceeds the maximum floor area allowed for accessory buildings without a principal use. Therefore, a site-specific zoning bylaw amendment is required to enable this development. Staff have reviewed the proposal and have no concerns with it. We believe that it will not have any negative impacts on the surrounding properties or the environment, and that it will not prevent future residential or agricultural developments on the lot. Staff also notes that there are other similar lots in the area that have accessory buildings without principal uses, and that this proposal is consistent with the OCP's vision for rural residential development. Z23-005 is a request to rezone the property at 1003 Main Street from core commercial to multifamily residential. According to the official community plan, this property has the future land use designation of multifamily residential. This means that it is suitable for housing more than one household, such as apartments, townhouses, and duplexes. The current use of the property is as a single-family residential use and previously contained the veterinary offices in a second building at the rear, which is currently vacant. The owner of the property has applied to rezone it to RM, or residential multifamily, which is consistent with the OCP. Staff have reviewed the zoning application and have no concerns or objections. If the property is rezoned to RM, the existing detached dwelling unit can remain as a permitted use. However, if the property is redeveloped in the future, any new structures would have to comply with the current zoning bylaw at that time. The new zoning bylaw will likely not allow new single detached dwellings at this address, but rather some form of multifamily building consistent with the OCP density requirements. Z23-006 is a request to partially rezone a property at 1824 Highway 99 North from agriculture to rural residential 1. 1824 Highway 99 North covers 12.5 hectares of land with different levels of elevation. Some parts are flat and suitable for farming, while others are steep and more challenging. The property is divided into two sections by the agricultural land reserve boundary. The section inside the reserve is 5.8 hectares, and it has a house and a workshop on it. The section outside the reserve is 6.7 hectares, and it is vacant. The owners want to change the zoning of this section from agriculture to rural residential so that they can subdivide it or check the feasibility of subdividing it into smaller lots. This means that the property would have two different zones, which is called split zoning until a subdivision occurred. However, this also requires changing the official community plan, which currently designates the whole property as agricultural land. The OCP states that RR1 zoning allows for a minimum subdivision of 1 hectare, 2.47 acres, when not able to connect to water or sewer. As the district currently has no plans to extend services out to East Lillooet, any potential development would be limited by the ability to service these lots and would be determined by the applicant's engineer to the satisfaction of the approving officer at the time of subdivision. The applicants have stated that they would like to investigate bringing water to service the subdivision. And beyond the cost of this, the owners would need to petition to enter the water service area, which would also need to include other properties along the extension to a green, and council would have to be willing to adopt the additional infrastructure and associated burden. The OCP does state that new residential developments be contained within the growth priority area. However, this does not limit large lot rural development. The intent of this section is to maximize existing infrastructure rather than continuing to sprawl. However, as Lillooet is in need of housing, and despite the challenges in servicing these lots, staff are supporting this rezoning application coming to public hearing. Should there be support or no opposition, staff will recommend that council give third reading, but not adopt the bylaw. This will give the owners the assuredness that the bylaw is approved in principle, and they can continue with their investigations and apply for a subdivision. Once the approving officer is satisfied, staff will return to council with a recommendation to finally adopt the bylaw. We did receive some public feedback, which has, most of it came in after the agenda was published, so it has been provided to you. For 110 Highway 12, which is on the pink paper, 2 feedback forms were received in support of the rezoning. For 1003 Main Street, we did not receive any public feedback. And for 1824 Highway 99 North, which is on the yellow paper, 1 feedback form was received in general support, but wanting to ensure any new residential development does not impact the limited water supply on Pine Ridge Road. Thank you.
So are those the written submissions after the agenda has been published?
What was the package in front of you? Yes.
Okay, I declare the public hearing open. At this time, I ask, is there anyone who wishes to speak to either of the proposed bylaws? Please indicate which bylaw you are speaking to. So for clarity, bylaw 2023-011 is for 110 Highway 12. Bylaw 2023-012 is for 1003 Main Street. And bylaws 2023-013 and 014 are for 1824 Highway 99 North. So after you've spoken once, I would ask that you wait till all of the members of the public have had the opportunity to be heard before speaking a second time. Please stand at the election to speak.
And if there's anybody attending virtually who wishes to speak, please use the raise hand icon.
Okay, for a second time, is there anyone who wishes to speak further to the proposed bylaw?
Madam Mayor, just for clarity, this is an opportunity to speak to any one of the 4 bylaws.
Sorry, pardon me. My name's Evan Taylor. I'm just not sure if this is one of the bylaws pertaining to me, Kevin.
No, that will be a DVP later in the.
Okay, just checking. Thank you.
Okay, for a third and final time, is there anyone who wishes to speak further to the proposed bylaw or any one of the 4 of them?
And just for additional clarity, this is the only opportunity to speak on any of these 4 bylaws. There will not be a further opportunity later in the meeting.
Okay, hearing none, I declare the public hearing closed. Will someone move that all written and verbal submissions regarding bylaw number 2023-011, bylaw number 2023-012, bylaw number 2023-013, and bylaw number 2023-014 up to and including July 11, 2023 be received and the public hearing be closed? Councilor McNary, seconded by Councilor DeBruin. Any further questions? All in favor? Great. Okay, we will. Okay, we're at agenda item 6, adoption of the minutes. Can I have a motion that the June 20th, 2023 regular council meeting minutes be adopted as presented? Councilor Reeve, seconded by Councilor DeBruin. Favor? Carried. Is there any business arising from the minutes or any rise in report? Thank you. Moving on to correspondence and petitions. I ask, does anyone wish to remove one or more of the 8 correspondence items under 9.1 of the agenda? Please raise your hand. Councilor Flynn.
I would like to move number 8, firework permits and evidence.
Okay. For 8, we will move that to 17.1. Okay. Okay. Any other correspondence anybody wishes to remove? Okay, seeing none, can I have a motion to move the remainder of the correspondence items to be received? Councillor Weed, seconded by Councillor DeBruin. All in favor? Carried. Okay, no reports from committees. On to staff reports and presentations. So water conservation restrictions. Are you speaking to that, Mr. Taylor, or do we have Mr. Darling?
Mr. Darling is joining us and is connecting it.
Okay. Hello, Mr. Darling.
Madam Mayor, Council. So anyway, water demands and maintenance issues increased during the summer, as we all know. And it increases the stresses on the water utility system. There are basically three forms of dealing with this issue as follows, or currently three forms, and that's implementing water conservation restrictions to reduce consumption, opening the interconnection to Town Creek to add additional water to the system, or a combination of both. It's important that staff be able to respond to the various problems within the water system in a timely manner, as any delay can result in significant operational issues and costly equipment expenses and overtime. During summer months, council, like all staff, are not always around, and so we need the ability to deal with these water issues on a quick response time. If water consumption is the issue and the need to address the issue is urgent, the only current option that staff has is the opening of the Town Creek interconnection, because we don't currently have the ability under the current bylaws to do water restrictions. An increase to water stage 2 was considered earlier this year, but adjustments to the system, and we did put a notice out in on Facebook and other social media asking residents to voluntarily reduce consumption. They responded to that, so it has provided an opportunity to delay the response. Currently, the demand is about 6,400 cubic meters, or 6,400 to about 6,600 cubic meters per day, and 6,800 cubic meters is considered the threshold for moving to stage 2. This could change at a moment's notice if residents decide that they want to increase consumption because they've reduced it and now their grass is dying because of the extra heat, or they're having problems with other vegetation. Other communities in BC have moved already to stage 3 and 4, but that is mostly because their concern is not having sufficient water to meet their community needs. Lillooet has the safeguard of Town Creek to ensure water quantity is sufficient, as the flows from Town Creek are not currently interconnected with the district's water system. So it's not about water shortage, it's about water quality. It is understood that it is of the utmost, Town Creek is a viable alternative, but it will include notifying Interior Health. And it's almost certain that they'll ask either for a water quality advisory or a boil water notice, both of which could negatively affect the tourism industry or public trust in the district's water system. It is understood that it is of the utmost importance that council be advised of all issues and water conservation restrictions. We feel that amendments to the bylaw would ensure procedures would be set in place to ensure council is well advised in advance and provided with the information necessary to deal with any questions as to why water conservation restrictions were implemented or why Town Creek was interconnected and resulting in a water quality or boil water notice. So staff is recommending that the water conservation bylaw 2011 number 356 be amended to improve response times to real-time issues in dealing with the supply of water to the residents of Lillooet.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Darling. Questions for staff? Councillor McNary.
I have a question on why not put Town Creek on and keep our grass green in case we have a fire, that we don't have one great big torch in the middle of town. That's my question. I would rather boil water for 2 weeks or a month instead of burning town down with a bunch of grass that's dry. That's my thought. Like we were just talking about a fire safety thing, you know, green and cleaned up and whatnot.
Yeah, through the mayor, that is a viable option. It would be up to council if they want to have the water quality advisories or possibly a boil water notice, depending on the quality of water in Town Creek at the time. I know the source water development plan, one of the items it has in there is the suggestion that consideration should be given to just what you have mentioned there, is that the town or the district consider keeping the town wet and opening, because there's Dickey Creek as well. Keeping those two open, going into water quality advisories or boil water notices, and keeping the town wet during the fire season. But those are not in any bylaws as of right now. So the only methods we have is the one of the two, either entering stages of restrictions or having Town Creek open and restricting water use as well. So, but it most likely will result in a water quality advisory or a boil water notice, and that's Interior Health.
Can I ask, so if we were to open Town Creek, that interconnection, what would be the impact of that? Is it just, we just turn on a switch or open it up and yeah, we would have to contact, you know, Interior Health and get their okay. But would that just mix with our water treatment plant, or how would that work?
No, it doesn't go through the water treatment plant. It would just go into the upper network of the water system. We would only have to tell Interior Health that we're doing it, and they would tell us what kind of advisory we'd have to give out. And the interconnection's already there. The interconnection with Dickey Creek is already there. So it's mainly just turning on valves. It's not, you know, like, it's not as if there has to be some construction or anything. They're just right now, all that water of those two creeks is bypassing the city and just flowing down the creeks and into the river.
Okay, so I'm still a little confused. If we were to open up that interconnection, then it wouldn't go into our drinking water, our potable water. It would?
Yes.
Yes, it definitely would. It just, the water treatment plant being down at the lower end of the water system, it wouldn't go down there and then come back up through the pump system. But it would intermingle or, you know, with the water. And so there would be a water quality advisory over whatever portion of the district that you know, that water is mixing with.
Councilor Weed.
Through the mayor, I'm in support of what Randy is saying, and I'm wondering, Chief White, you could maybe give me, well, I'm just thinking, like, if we're going on conserving the water and this address water's here and that one, you know, that takes up some bylaw stuff or inspection or complaints or whatever. I too would rather just boil my water or have drinkable water at the house. Like, how much time does it take to, I don't even know if we're doing it, if we're monitoring it, and I hate to do this on YouTube, but because I'm assuming with the shortage of staff that we're not monitoring it anyway. So I would kind of back that we open up the creeks and water to your heart's content and boil your water or.
Try to save our town.
Yeah.
Okay, so before, I think I'll just get everybody's questions and then, okay, Councilor Kwan.
Okay, mine's, I agree with all of this here, but I'm going back to here. So what we're asking for is for Public Works to be authorized to implement, increase, reduce, and cancel water restriction stages as deemed necessary. So this is without council approval. Okay, so in the discussion here, it says during the summer months, council meetings are reduced and their availability may not meet the needs of staff to contend with a pressing unforeseen issue. And then you say that it's understood that it's the utmost importance to council to be advised of these issues for water conservation restrictions. So procedures would be set into place to ensure council is well advised in advance to provide the information necessary. So how does that make sense when in one breath you're saying council's not available, but you are going to give us ample pre-warning that you are wanting to do all of these procedures. So that one doesn't make sense to me, and with that. I don't know, anything
You
from
want me to
me?
respond?
Yeah, go
Okay.
ahead.
Yep, sorry. Yeah, through the mayor. Basically what we would do is we'd set up a procedure where council would just be informed. So we wouldn't be waiting for a response, but the bylaw may say you need 48 hours of notice. So it would be through an email or whatever. Some communities actually have the residents put their email addresses into a database, especially people with, immune deficiencies or whatever. They put their name in, they get notified as well that this is going to happen so that they're aware of what's going on. But it wouldn't be a notification that is waiting for a response and an approval. It would be a notification so you know why it is happening, that it is happening, and then why it is happening. So when you get a call from the residents, then you'd be able to answer their questions.
Yeah, I don't know, just the wording in that, and you're still saying that you're gonna know at least 48 hours beforehand. My thinking is that you would be able to get hold of council to say, this is what we need. So like any watering changes to me, as we've discussed, could severely affect like our community, our businesses, everybody else. So I think that these decisions should stay with mayor and council. But if you want to change something in the conservation bylaw, I got a couple others that could change.
Okay. So my question is, so the Director of Public Works and Utilities be authorized to implement, increase, reduce, or cancel water restriction stages as deemed necessary. For me, I kind of want to be at the forefront of that conversation as well.
I feel the same.
Does anybody else have any other comments? And if not, Chief Oiki, okay.
I have a little bit more to say about that. I was talking about turning the Town Creek on and the Dickey Creek on and whatnot. I think I would like to be informed before we make any decisions at all, that these things are working and they're on board with us. I think council should make the decision. We're the one that are going to get the flack in the end. And if we can keep town green, that's what I want.
Councilor DeBruin.
Been hearing the various comments and that sort of stuff, and I do understand what Director of Public Works indicated, that the situation can be very volatile, and we're currently at 6,300, 6,400. But if it continues to dry out, we could pass the 6,800 and therefore pass certain thresholds and that sort of stuff. So I do agree that in certain situations, being able to promptly decide upon a course of action, one that is to go left or right, would be, as we delegate many decisions to staff, they can take that as sort of at a, in a timely course. The thing that I think would be helpful in that, in order to guide their decision making, is to create policy, and the policy would say that the priority of council would be to utilize Town Creek and Dickey Creek and other resources prior to going to a stage 4, so that we have something in a policy that guides staff in their decision making, that they can take and at a moment's notice flip a switch or do something so that they can implement for the safety of town. Because if they can get quorum, and that has to be a public meeting, it's not an email, right? It has to be a public meeting. So they'd have to call emergency public meeting, and they have to give notice, that sort of stuff. So we lose time, and for the safety of our community, I think it's would be prudent to sort of preempt that in policy. In policy that indicates what we desire, just like our investment policy and all these other policies that we have. That sort of outlines the wishes of council to give to Director of Public Works.
Councilor Reid, through the mayor, I'm in agreement with that, but I don't think we should expect them to contact us every time there's an incident that they have to do something. Yes, I think we should be notified that it's happening, that we're on boil alert or whatever we are, whatever. But right now is the time that we can make the decision. We're being notified that this is where we're at. Where would we like to go? So I don't know how much more notification we need than every summer we go through this same show, different day. So to me, we've been notified several times over the years, and now is the time, like Councillor DeBruin said, set up the policy. This is what, I mean, I don't know, we could be at 6,800 by 2 a.m. in the morning. Everybody turns on their sprinklers. I mean, I don't know how it works, right? I'm not that up on water. We are if we set up the rules and regulations that we want to see happen.
For me, I don't have a problem with stage 1 water. I don't have a problem with stage 2. That's 2 times a week. Stage 3, no sprinklers, just plants and drip. The problem I have is stage 4 is no water. That's where I need to, before we make that decision, I would like us to know, because we are the ones that are taking that. Mr. Taylor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and I think Mr. Belling wanted to speak after as well. Councillor DeBruin hit it on the head with the idea to have a policy, and if council is fine with stage 1, 2, and 3, then we do still need to give the director the authority to go to stage 1, 2, or 3, and it's best to do that through a bylaw amendment. And we're not amending a bylaw today; we're just looking for permission to prepare a bylaw amendment. If council wanted to then also direct staff to prepare policies stating when a special meeting or an emergency meeting, which can be called without notice if everyone's there and chooses to waive notice, then we could have that in the policy specifically for that stage 4 water restriction.
Okay, I'd be good with that.
And Mr. Darling, was there anything else you'd like to add?
Through the mayor, just 2 little notes. One is if you put in a water quality or a boil water notice, IHA is probably going to make you put signs up all over town. So every tourist that comes into town is going to see those signs out on the highway, and they might just bypass. I know the last community I worked for, they did not want boil water or water quality advisories for any reason whatsoever. But you may have to have them if that's the way you want to go. And then the other side of the coin is, though it may sound like I'm asking for carte blanche right to change the stages whenever I feel like, I can assure you that any manager that knows what he's doing moves upstairs and talks to the CAO and says, like, I can fire somebody if I want to, but I would never do that without talking to the CAO and the management team and making sure that everything's okay and that we move forward accordingly. It's not going to be, I don't know who you're going to hire after me, but I would never make that decision without talking to other people to make sure that it's the right decision. And if we could get in touch with council, that'd be great. But I know when we were thinking of putting on the stage 2 a couple of weeks back, I was told, well, council was away and we couldn't get a meeting for 3 days. Well, that doesn't do us any good. Like it was mentioned before, everybody could turn on their sprinklers tonight and we could be, into water restrictions, and we'd have to wait until we can get in touch with everybody tomorrow. So, but it's up to council, whatever you want to do.
Councillor Glenn.
With these discussions, I would be okay with going to the stage 3, but hitting the stage 4, and actually this is where I said I would have a change. The one change for the stage 4, like if that was something that we could add, is just so many people now have planted gardens after COVID-19, just with food supply challenges and everything there. If we're working with stage 4, I would like to add that people could still water their gardens, like their vegetable gardens, because that was a big thing during COVID. So many more people have planted because of food and everything, and there is that still stigma, I guess, that there could be food shortages. Does that kind of make sense?
Yes, so Mr. Taylor, can you help me out here? If stage, you still want to discuss stage 3, so stage 3 and stage 4, can we move forward to create a bylaw like Councilor DeBruin said? And then in that creation of that bylaw at that time, discuss stage 3 and 4.
Yes, I'm not sure how to capture all of that in a resolution.
Me neither.
But yes, there will still be, like any bylaw comes for first, second, third, and adoption. You could take a look at the first one, only give it first reading to get it onto the table. You could refer it to a committee of the whole. You could ask staff to put it out for feedback. It is your process. We often bring forward bylaws where we say 1, 2, 3, but those are a lot of our standard bylaws that just come forward. So you're under no obligation to give it first 3 readings the first time you see it. And sorry, Mr. Darling also has a comment.
Okay.
If I may suggest an amendment to the motion, or actually to the petition, that would be a third paragraph, which would read, and Mr. Taylor can revise afterwards, it would read, and that staff work with council to draft a water conservation policy that will guide the delegated authority of the Director of Public Works.
Mayor, that's almost exactly what I had written anyways, so I will not suggest an amendment to Councillor DeBruin's this time.
Okay. Okay, Mr. Darling, sorry.
Yeah, through the mayor, if I could suggest a possible solution to this may be that to amend the bylaw and say stage 3 and 4 cannot be implemented unless there is not sufficient water to service the district. So we'd go stage 1, stage 2. Then if we have to move to stage 3, we would use Town Creek. So we go into a water quality advisory or a boil water notice. And only if there is no water in Town Creek or Dickey Creek, then we would consider moving into stage 3 or stage 4. So that kind of, stage 2 is not that bad. And then we say, okay, well, we're willing to go into water quality advisory on stage before stage 3 or stage 4.
Great,
Yeah,
okay.
I like that.
But on the staff recommendation, it also says that the Director of Public Works and Utilities be authorized to implement, increase, reduce, or cancel water restriction stages. So that would be going the other way. I think I'm okay with that. And it would be a step stool, right? I mean, you're not gonna just turn around and shut down the water. I mean, it'll be a step stool, so we will be aware of that. Yes, Mr. Darling.
Through the mayor, maybe if we amended the report to say that I have the authority to move into stage 2 and not all stages. So the authority to move into stage 2 and that we have to bring the amended bylaw back to council with the changes that were, I understand that you're wanting. And so then that would give us the opportunity now if we do, because stage 2 is fairly imminent. And then it would give us a little bit of time to come back to the next council meeting and say, okay, here's the amended bylaw. Can we run with this?
Or what do you
Yep.
think?
I think Mr. Darling has a good idea there with the stage 3 and 4, like, and make sure that the other creeks are on board. And if we run into trouble where those other creeks don't have enough water, then we have to do. We gotta do.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that it's just really important for me to know that everybody at this table is well aware before we're shutting off water, what's exactly happening before it goes out to the public.
Because I think a green Lillooet is way better than a dry one.
Right? Counselor Weave, feel like you got a question?
Well, I'm just, through the mayor, sorry, I'm just a little concerned because we don't have another council meeting till August 8th. So a lot of things can happen in 3 weeks. A lot of things can happen overnight. I just,
It can move to 2 right now.
Mr. Darling.
Yeah, through the mayor. Worst case scenario would be we'd go into stage 2 if you give me the authority and we have to do that. And then if before the next council meeting, we have to open up Town Creek, we would notify council and tell them that that's what's going to have to happen. And we're not going into stage 3 and we'd open up Town Creek. So you're not going to run out of water. There's no issue of Lillooet running out of water, at least not in this point in time. But that would be the scenario that would happen. So it's not like, like right now, there's no restrictions to staff from opening up the valves and letting water in from Town Creek or Dickey Creek, though any smart staff person would make sure council knows what's going on before they ever do it. So.
Okay, we appreciate that. Any further questions? Okay, I think I'm gonna make a motion here. All right, I'll get you guys too. Will someone move that the Director of Public Works and Utilities be authorized to implement, increase, reduce, or cancel water restriction stages as deemed necessary due to changing operational issues and water consumption demands? And that staff amend the Water Conservation Bylaw 2011, number 356, to reflect the change in the Director of Public Works and Utilities authority, and submit the amended bylaw to council for consideration.
And then there was the
And,
potential for and further that staff draft policy determining when that delegated authority is applicable. And I would also mention in the first one, you should add or cancel water restriction stages up to stage 2.
Okay. As amended, including those 2 additions. Do I have a motion? Councilor DeGroom, seconded by Councilor Weave, all in favor? Carried. Okay. 11.2, update, Mr. Darling.
Okay, I'll just do a brief one, and then if you want additional information, just ask the question. But anyway, water source development. We met with the hydrogeologist and the water consultant to discuss Town Creek and the infiltration wells. The preliminary report to be presented to council in the early fall. The report will provide magnitude of costs and recommendation to proceed to detailed design and tender. A tender will be in the spring of 2024 with the completion in the summer of 2024. So the report will basically tell you what it will cost to do both projects together, either project separately, and then council can decide on how they want to proceed with that based on that information. Then we'll go to tender, either doing the whole thing at once or just doing Town Creek or just doing the infiltration wells. And the idea is that it'll be complete by the next summer.
Okay, and that'll be early fall. You'll be bringing that to council?
Yep. We had a meeting about 2 weeks ago. We were in Lillooet and we looked at the sites and everything. So they got the information they need, and they're getting some information from the public works foreman, but yeah, it'll be in the fall, early fall.
And I have to add, if anybody hasn't read the water report that was done 2 years ago, I think it was, it's an excellent report. So Mr. Darling, I'm sure would forward that to you.
I'd like that, please.
That's the one that Agua did. Sure, I can get that.
Please, if you could, yeah, if you could forward it actually just to all of us, that'd be great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, the second one is the airport phase 2. Basically, it's complete and on budget, need an adapter for one of the dispenser hoses. As some planes need a special modification. We've got that coming in by Perlator, so it should be here shortly, and it's like a $300 item. And we're awaiting arrival of a remote level sensor that will allow finance to evaluate the current levels of fuel and other accordingly without relying on public works staff to manually read the fuel levels. So staff will no longer have to go out there. Finance will be able to determine what the levels are. They'll be able to order the fuel based on that information. We also did repaint all the lines so that the helicopters are far enough away from the new dispensers, but that project is basically done and on budget. The remote level sensors are included in the original budget, so it's no added cost. Paving projects. We're planning on doing some paving on Russell Avenue, and the reason for that is that the development at 1091 has to do some paving on Main Street and 11th Avenue and Russell at the same time. So we're kind of piggybacking on them and doing a short section on both sides of 11th. So to the south and the north, I believe. And we're also going to be paving some recent sewer water service installations. We're dealing with paving issues neglected by a developer of a subdivision. We're holding money in security on that. So I'm going to be, as soon as I find out when the pavers are coming in, I'm just going to write them a letter and saying we're doing the work and you're going to get billed. And then the airport road, we went out there with the, we had the paving contractor come in because he was looking at these other things. And his comment with airport road is, I cannot fix that. And so we talked about different options. We talked about making it a gravel road, like milling out the existing asphalt, or not asphalt. The problem with what's there now is that it's a gravel seal, a chip seal. And what happens is it gets hard. And so if you try to mill it out, it's not like asphalt. It doesn't break into little bits. It breaks into chunks. And so then you have to try to grade and get rid of the chunks and compact, and then you have to put some kind of soil sealant on the top. Their estimate was $80,000 just to do the milling, and that didn't include any of the other work. But they are looking at, the district has millings over on the industrial park. There's substantial millings there, so the contractor is looking at the possibility. There's 4 real bad areas on Airport Road. He's looking at possibilities of using those millings in those areas to fix those sections as best we can. So, and the millings work, if you pack them in at the right time of year and it's hot, they pack just down like asphalt. So, but that's where it's at right now. So we're hoping to get an answer back from them within the next week or so. But as of right now, I don't have an answer of what they're planning or what they're suggesting for Airport Road. And we're still getting complaints about we've got 3 complaints about the potholes, and I'm sure more are coming. Any questions on that?
Yeah, is that Airport Road or is that Whitney Road at the top?
I'm not sure. Airport Road, I'm not sure where it ends. So Airport Road comes up and then it hits Jones. So it's the road between Jones Road and Whitney Road. So I don't know if that's Whitney or Airport Road because there's no sign there.
There's Airport. Okay, so what about Whitney Road? Because I know that road is.
I'm talking about the portion of road that it would be. I'm not sure what the direction is there. West of Jones Road, the intersection of Airport Road and Jones Road. Jones Road is when you turn off Airport Road and you go to the airport.
Okay.
There is no sign that says where you're going down the other way. So I don't know if that's Whitney Road, but there's 4 sections in there. And then when you get down, there's 1.6 kilometers approximately. There's 4 bad sections. And then once you turn the corner down at the far end, the road's in good condition again. So Darren, do you know what that is? Is that Whitney Road or is that?
Where it makes the corner, that's Whitney, where that junction that goes in. From the end is Whitney Road,
Airport Road's branch all the way from the bottom all the way to that intersection.
So it
So-
passed, Airport Road passes Jones Road and goes all the way down to the far end. Right.
There's
So
some
I'm
seal
talking-
coat. There's some sort of seal coat that you can put in there and make it a little bit
No.
better? Or
No,
not at all? So could you gravel it and then seal coat it on top or? No?
What
No,
did
it's
they
not
use?
gonna work.
Big windrows of gravel and then they start dumping oil on them and they just grade them.
Yeah.
And you got that gravel already with the oil on it. And they used to grade it back and forth. That's the way they did lots of roads. I don't know, does that still work or was a big failure or what?
well, we think the millings are gonna work better than any other solution. And there's quite a pile of them there. There's lots of them, so.
Okay. What about Cooks Road? Did you have a chance to look at Cooks Road? Because I hear it's just as, so Cooks Road, I don't know, years ago was approved by council of the day for 2 seal coats. But then they only got 1 seal coat and now it's all breaking up. So it's a heck of a mess, I understand. I'm just wondering, I doubt the money's still there. It's been long spent. But is there did you have a chance to look at Cooks Road?
I drove up Cooks Road in my SUV with my wife. And we didn't see an issue with it.
Okay.
You know, there's a little bit of washboarding, but I mean, it's a gravel road on a hillside, so.
All right.
you know,
And the
And we're not,
only-
and we're not gonna have enough money in the budget to do these things. We're gonna have to come back, so. But I really didn't think, like, you know, I didn't have a 4-wheel drive or anything. I just went up there in an SUV and it wasn't any problem, so.
Okay, the other
No potholes or anything, so.
I have is paving Russell Avenue with 11th right there. Are we redoing any of the pipes at the same time?
No.
Or, so if we want to redo those pipes, then we'll be digging it up.
We had 2 options there. One was to do full reconstruction, which would mean that you'd have to take out the asphalt, take out the base course, take out unsuitable materials, replace with pit 1 gravels, base gravels, sub-base gravels, base gravels, and asphalt. And it would be a huge cost and you'd just be ripping it up when you put those in. What we're planning on doing is putting in a level course. And so with a level course, what they do is they take a paver and they run it tight against the road and they fill in the potholes and any imperfections. They pound it down with a packer. They tack coat over that so that the next layer sticks in, and then they run a 40mm asphalt overlay. So we're hoping that will keep those sections of Russell Street in good enough order until the money is there to rip it up and proceed. But we didn't think it would make sense to do the full meal deal and then just rip it all out when, you know, the cost of it's around $25,000. I added in a 25% contingency, whether we use it or not, I'm not sure, but there shouldn't be really any unforeseen things there. And so it's not a huge expense. It'd probably be $80,000 to $100,000 to, you know, fully rebuild it. So.
Thank you. That's all my questions. Anybody else?
How many is 40mm?
It's about this big. 50 is 2 inches, so it's about, well, I don't know, 1.5 inches or. It's just enough. The idea is to fill in the potholes, get some compaction, and then put a smooth surface on top. PRV 7, we're preparing a report for council to consider moving forward with the upgrade of the PRV on 7th Avenue, which is a confined space issue for staff. We've applied for grants twice on this one. The district has received some money. I'm not sure what the account's from. Joni's not there, so she can't help me out with that. But there's about 1.2 million, which is lots of money to do this project. we're going to bring a report back or report to council to consider moving forward. And with that, we'll have a kind of a magnitude of costs and what the design would be and what we're planning on doing. And so there's nothing going on it right now, other than that'll be before the end of the year. We'll have a report to council so that you can make a decision on whether you want to move forward on it in next year's budget kind of thing. The subdivision and developing servicing bylaw, most of the design and requirement sections are near completion and being reviewed. So that's basically the text side. The review, once you get that done, when I've ever done these bylaws, is that once you get there, you get to the detailed drawings, and that's where everything slows down. We've done the review of the detailed drawings, or not done the review, we've done a preliminary review, and we've kind of submitted what we think is going to be the drawings that we need. We'll take a look at those. We'll submit those to Public Works and Development Services. Public Works, I mean, the Public Works foreman, and Development Service for review and comment, and the draft bylaw presentation to council for consideration should be the fall of this year. So, but we're kind of, there's always this delay in dealing with the detailed drawings and what I actually want. Most bylaws have way too many, and we're trying to cut this thing as short as we can. Questions? Kevin?
Well, I appreciate it, Mr. Darling. That's the PRV on 7th Avenue would be for the 1.2 million is that community fund. That was that thing to use it on, but
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
that drain that's a small confined area that, I don't know,
Sure, use it now.
pressure reducing valve. There you go.
So,
Thank you.
So, and then the last one I was going to comment on was garbage collection, where I've done a revision to the garbage collection contract, and it's been sent out to the management team for review. And I'm doing a review or changes to the collection and regulation bylaw. And that'll be, once it's done, it'll go out to management for review and then go to council, and that'll be done by the end of the year as well.
Excellent, thank you. Good work. Okay, any other questions? No, well, thank you very much, Mr. Darling. Appreciate
Okay.
it.
So I can sign out?
Yes, thank you,
Did
Mr.
you
Darling.
want to?
Okay, thanks.
Going golfing.
Okay, well. Okay, 12.1, DBP 23-006, 341 Main Street, varying so bylaw, parking setbacks, height of retaining wall. Mr. Taylor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. DBP 23. One. There we go. DBP 23-006 is a request to vary provisions of the zoning bylaw to facilitate redevelopment at the site at 341 Main Street. 341 Main Street is a commercial property that was built in 1985. It used to have 4 apartments and a large commercial area, but it has been vacant for a year due to fire safety issues that resulted in a do not occupy order. The owner wishes to fix those issues and make some improvements to the building and the site. The improvements include new firewalls, insulation, siding, doors, and windows. The owner also wants to create a new retaining wall, parking spaces, bike rack, landscaping, and garbage and recycling areas. The owner initially applied for and received a DBP in 2022 for 3 things. No commercial loading space, legitimizing the front setback as it is, and not installing an oil water separator. The DBP number was DBP 22-007. The DBP also said that the only business and that the only businesses could be personal services uses or Group D occupancies, could go in the commercial space, not mercantile uses, which are Group E occupancies, due to the removal of the commercial loading space. The owner also asked to change the hard surfacing rules for the parking and driving areas, but that was rejected by council. This variance request to parking is to reduce the number of commercial parking stalls from 18 to 13. The residential parking requirement is and will continue to be 5, which is calculated at 1.25 spaces per residential dwelling unit. The additional commercial parking is limited by the existing development on the site, and staff and the applicant have worked back and forth to try and determine how best to work with the existing characteristics of the property. This includes accessible parking spaces, which are wider than typical parking stalls. However, as the commercial uses on the property are limited to Group D occupancies, it is unlikely that there will be the same type of traffic generation as a Group E mercantile occupancy or storefront would typically generate. The applicant is again requesting to not hard surface the parking areas and drive aisles, but to use gravel crush instead. The rationale is to not impact the archaeological site. However, the site does not project over the entirety of the parcel. We have received a review from a registered archaeologist who does recommend that gravel crush be laid under a site alteration permit within the confines of the identified archaeological site. This, however, does not apply to the majority of the lot, which would still benefit from paved parking areas, including the areas that are adjacent to accessible parking areas. Gravel is not conducive to accessible friendly access for wheelchairs, walkers, or other mobility assistance. The area that wouldn't be paved would be near the entrance to the property. Insofar as stormwater is concerned, it is the developer's responsibility to ensure that post-development runoff does not exceed pre-development runoff, and they must demonstrate how they intend to retain that additional water on site. Further, this is going to be a tight and potentially confusing parking area. Maneuvering markers should be painted to ensure that traffic flows appropriately on the site, and this is difficult to accomplish and maintain on gravel. The next request is a variance to setback requirements to allow for the placement of the garbage enclosure at the back of the property. Again, due to the existing site characteristics and that the variance is against a slope with no potential to negatively impact any adjacent property, staff are supporting this creative solution. Finally, in order to get a wide enough drive aisle at the rear of the property, a retaining wall will be required to shore up the bank. The height of the retaining wall currently designed is 1.53 meters or 5 feet, which is in excess of the 1.2 meters or 4 feet within a required setback that is the maximum within the current zoning bylaw. This will allow for the creation of the required 3.5 meter wide one-way drive aisle, which is necessary to access the additional parking stalls at the south of the property. In order to appropriately place this wall, however, the wall will need to encroach at one point nearly a meter outside the rear property line. While not part of the variance permit, they are requesting the council authorize staff to enter into an encroachment agreement for this structure. The encroachment agreement would clearly stipulate that the ongoing maintenance and overall responsibility for the wall would remain with the property owner at 341 Main Street, and would also stipulate any insurance that is required to be maintained, with the district being indemnified and additionally insured. Staff are recommending that the variance to parking, paving in the archaeological area, the rear and interior side setbacks, and the height of the retaining wall be approved, and that the request to not pave the remainder of the parking area be denied, and that staff be authorized to enter into an encroachment agreement. Please note that the recommendation on the report on page 53 of your agenda packet is the correct recommendation. The only difference being that staff are recommending that the maximum encroachment be permitted up to 1 meter beyond the rear property line instead of 0.76 meters, in order to give us a little more flexibility based on the engineer's final design. It is now appropriate to open the floor to anyone who feels their interests are affected by this variance application, starting with the applicant.
My name is Andrew Melzikowski, 662 Columbia Street. I am representing the applicant. Regarding the hard paving of the site, We are proposing 4-inch crushed gravel over the entire site for following reasons. First off, gravel gives us necessary permeability to contain rainwater within the site. A holding tank, rainwater holding, stormwater holding tank would be very difficult to install. We did it on 1091 Main because it was sand. Over there, 341 Main there are rock outcrops. So it would be very difficult, if not impossible, to install a rainwater holding tank in there. As far as I know, we didn't hire a mechanical engineer to assess the capacity of the storm sewer along Main Street. But as far as I know the anecdotal story about it, the storm sewer is basically not up to capacity to take the amount of rainwater in case of hard paving the whole lot, except this archaeological area or not. Storm runoff from metal roof and from asphalt would be within minutes, if not seconds. And the danger is that it may flood Main Street. The capacity of treatment plant, sewage treatment plant, is also not up to standards. It cannot take this amount of water. So I think given the fact that we cannot hard surface the archaeological area for future possible excavations, archaeological studies, we propose to gravel entire lot. See the Lillooet zoning bylaw 454 of 2018 says that off-street parking design criteria, development and maintenance states that each parking stall must be surfaced with asphalt, concrete, or permeable drivable surface, such as, but not limited to, note this, not limited to the following: porous pavers, cobblestones, dirt block, honeycomb, grid. But that's not all. In other words, proposing a permeable surface is allowed by the bylaw, and it has practical, there are practical reasons to do it. We propose 4-inch crushed gravel, which is locking in. Demarcation of parking stalls would be by wheel stops. So where you have, say, yellow wheel stops on the gray gravel, everybody will understand where you can park. Now, there will be 4 apartments, 4 apartments requiring 5 stalls for the residents. So these people will be familiar with the site. The clients of the proposed commercial rental units, given the fact that this is not Vancouver, will also be fairly familiar. So there will be a number of people who will know where to park and how to park. So we are asking the council to approve the development variance permit with crushed gravel as a parking surface. Until such time where storm sewer is up to capacity to take the entire water from the building. There are also technical issues because the entrance of the site is fairly steep, and this area cannot be paved. This has to be gravel because of archaeological concerns. Now, the borderline between asphalt and gravel is very sensitive, especially on the slope. So after a short period of time, there will be a dump, a niche, I mean, a pothole. The asphalt will be difficult to maintain in this edge because of the wheels scraping and all that. So all in all, we are asking for the temporary, approval of the soft paving until such time as we can pave it properly. Thank you.
Okay. Councilor McNary.
My thoughts on this is I think they should be able to put crush on it all the way around until they can get their archaeology thing done, and then they can pave it. Because we need housing also. And the archaeology study, who knows when that'll get done? Like, I think, can we make a variance on that, or?
Mr. Taylor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The site alteration permit is a provincial permit, not a municipal permit, so we are not able to waive that requirement. And the archaeologist who submitted the statement supporting the gravel crush over the archaeological area said that even the placement of gravel crush would still require a site alteration permit, regardless of what the district does with this variance.
And we don't do that.
We don't do that. It's any work, any alteration, including the placement of crush, according to their archaeologist, requires a site alteration.
So what you're saying then, Kevin, is this here, they couldn't put crush on this piece here, that like it's already, what's already there. If they put crush on it to upgrade it, it wouldn't be, it would, like, they'd have to get a permit to do that also.
Get a permit according to the archaeologist, yes.
Okay. But we could put crush the rest of the way around it also, though?
Yes.
Okay.
Councilor
I'm still not kind of finished.
Okay.
So the archaeology part of it's just got me a bit stumped. If they put in a permit, what do they have to do in order to pave that in the end?
To pave the area within the archaeological area?
Yes.
It would be the same thing, another site alteration permit. We're not suggesting that they do that as the.
No, I understand that, but.
It would be the same process and then still subject to approval by the archaeology branch. So if the archaeology branch or the archaeologist working to apply for the permit determines that paving the area would cause damage to any archaeological assets within that area, they likely wouldn't issue the permit, which is why we're not pushing for it over that area, because Madam Mayor, it is important that this development does move.
Okay, Councilor Bland, I'll come back to you.
Just a couple of things with what Mr. Novodelsky said. Does our stormwater go down to the waste treatment plant?
Stormwater should not be fed into the sewer as part of developments. You're not to connect your use troughs into the sewer system. That being said, they're still underwater. There are still manholes, so it does infiltrate at some point, but it's not intended to be used as the sanitary sewer system.
Okay, so that did make sense there. But also with saying with the crush and then putting in the yellow barriers and that people will know where to park. That one sort of sticks with me because everybody at the mall knows where to park. Everybody knows exactly where all the lines are. You get one little thing of snow and it's free for all. So to me, just having the barriers and not actually having lines to designate actual parking, I don't see how that works. Yeah. Crush, I can't see. And also that property, I'm not sure what is going to be done with all of that, but it's historically been horrible for runoff and ruts and all of the gravel and everything torrenting down and covering Main Street. So to me, having crush, those problems would still be there.
I don't think they can put crush on that archaeology site.
No, I mean, the whole thing, but if you look at the history of that whole property, when it was Pizzarama, when it was everything else, there's always been ruts and the water has always run down into Main Street and also from that back driveway as well. So I'm not sure how crush would stop that happening or paving would.
I have a clarification question. If you look at the site drawing, there's what appears to be sort of not exactly a square what the property lines are. But then the driveway is sort of outside that square. My question is, who owns the driveway? Through the mayor.
Madam Mayor, technically it's on district right of way, but that's the same with every driveway. Every driveway in town, it needs to carry on to the constructed portion of the road at some point, which is often over the district's within the district right of way. So technically it is the district's, that portion outside. Just like any other residential driveway, the district had to do work within our right of way, and that portion of the driveway was over where that work needed to happen, the district would be able to remove that driveway in order to continue the work.
Okay, so my question would be, will the district then pave that section?
That's not currently on a work plan to pave the section, and a bunch of that driveway is still within that designated archaeological area.
So this will remain gravel. The district will maintain a gravel entrance to this property that we require to be paved.
That's the intent, yes.
Okay, so the argument that if this remains gravel, that will be tracking dust onto Main Street is sort of moot because there's a big gravel section there anyway.
That's correct.
As a matter of fact, we're tracking district dirt onto this property that's going to be nicely paved.
I suppose that would be an end result, yes.
Okay, so my other question is, if outside the archaeological section, what percentage of the remaining lot will be hard surfaced either between concrete or asphalt, and how much green space is left on this property?
The only green space is the on the east side of the drawing. You can see the shrubs in there immediately to the right of the building and the left of the driveway out of the property. That is the only landscaped strip area. Most of the rest of it is being paved, as most of the lot is required width is required to be drive aisle.
So we have a concrete retaining wall at the back. We have pavement all along. We have a concrete sidewalk emanating from the building. There's no green space except some rock garden that's on the east side of the building. In other words, there's no green space on this property. So this property is going to be hotter, just like our mall, where there's also no provisions for a cooling space, which for visitors, residents, and other people visiting the site will make it not very pleasant. And I find that those requirements that we put out to pave everything and to make everything clean and that sort of stuff, while ignoring green space and cooling places down, I find that sort of a lost opportunity. And I don't know whether keeping it all in gravel will cool it necessarily, but paving it will certainly not help.
Yeah, thank you. Just to touch on that, and absolutely correct about that type of hard surfacing. As the applicant mentioned, there are also permeable drivable surfaces such as porous pavers, cobblestones, turf blocking, honeycomb grid. What the developer at 622 Main Street, which is the DP and the rezoning that happened about 2 years ago, right across from Municipal Hall, the old farmers market site, had proposed is something similar to a honeycomb grid, where it's basically porous pavers that allows grass to grow up in it. So there are options. Whenever we say hard surfacing is required, we are referring to the hard surfacing that's permitted in the bylaw, including new technologies that would meet that, such as the not limited to, and then the examples it gives.
Okay, I have a question. The BC code also states that all of these have to be wheelchair accessible. And with that is on a hard surface to have a wheelchair. So obviously you cannot take a wheelchair in the gravel. Is that in consideration?
Regardless, they would still have to.
It would still have to have
hard surface
it
the area
friendly.
from the accessible parking stalls. So that only the designated accessible parking stall.
Okay,
There
that's
has to
by
be some
BC
sort of
code and
method.
not ours.
Yes.
Okay. All right. I don't know. This is a commercial property. I fear that I want to set precedents in what we have. So how can I put this? So if we were to say that, okay, he does not have to pay, then it would still, we could put some sort of stipulation like we have on the property across from where the old farmers market is, or is that already written in?
In the permit, the draft permit that is before you, it is specifically asking for gravel. If you want staff to go back and speak with the applicant about some of these newer options, then I would just recommend that you refer the item back to staff with that direction, and we will speak with the applicants and then bring it back to council again. And I'm resident for council to suggest that council put in place a requirement in a permit without making sure if the applicants are even remotely interested in meeting that requirement. Also, the applicant is here and we are willing to suggest it to him, but I also recommend against negotiating in the council.
So just a point of clarification regarding handicap access. Four accessible parking stalls are connected, are marked differently, diagonal lines. These are concrete sidewalks from the cars to a concrete sidewalk all around the building. I mean, along accessible parking building. So practically, everybody on wheelchair can step down from the car and be on concrete.
Okay, I see 3 HCs. Is that the handicap?
Yes.
So 3 of them are.
Yeah, but the fourth can also be handicap access.
The three are what are required. There is an additional one that may be able to facilitate access as well.
Okay. Counselor McNary, you had another question.
I have, like we was talking on the water issue. There is a big water issue problem here when it does rain, because that ditch fills right up, like right to the top along there. Because it is a rock bluff, for sure. Now, if we pave this, we're gonna add additional water to there very much. All this water is gonna come down to this ditch. And then this water also runs down below into the McEwen's down in there. And down there, they have water issues. And that's where this water comes from. I think we have to be very careful on saying we have to pave this where it won't be able to dissipate into the ground slowly, other than dumping it down in that ditch right there where it's gonna flow over the road down to the tracks and then down into McEwen's. Or that's not the BLA, what is it called down there? Fair Flats. Because they have a big water issue down there, and the Public Works knows about it. Because they got ditches down there and everything else all over the place. And it's running into people's yards. I think we gotta be very careful when we pave and what we don't pave. Because we are on a hill and there's lots of water, and it's not gonna get any better.
Just to that point that I share the concern, but ultimately it is the property owner's responsibility to take care of storm water. And whether or not you're a developer or whether or not you're a homeowner. I mean, but that doesn't alleviate the responsibility to do something with it. And I think, there are provisions in the development servicing bylaw that indicates that we can have above ground and underground stormwater provisions. And so in that sense, I think whether or not this is gravel or paved, I think those provisions need to be looked into to see what we can do to mitigate, some of the things that you're talking about. And because if it's all gravel, they're gonna continue to have the gravel onto, run off the property. That 4 inch is gonna be 2 inch, but in 2 years.
Another thing is, will it be cost effective? We need buildings, we need housing. If it's gonna cost them an extra $500,000 or $1 million to do that, it isn't worth it. It's gonna look like it looks for the next how many years?
And that's my concern with these alternative permeable innovative solutions is that, the question is how cost effective those are. And I'm not aware of the residential or commercial space, but given the age of the building and that sort of stuff, I don't see this to be particularly high-end living where the rental rates could carry such innovative services.
I agree with you.
Okay, so I am looking for an amendment to this entire motion. Yes.
Don't need an amendment if there's a motion that's already been made. No motion's been made yet.
I realize, so I'm looking for a motion to make the amendment on the and that.
On the page on the last page of the report, there is an alternate motion, that was, sorry, I don't have the page number.
Okay, so the last page of the report would be page 64.
64.
67.
67. It was 64.
57. Okay, it is 57, 56, 57, yes. Okay. Higher application,
Okay.
there is a requirement. Okay,
So it is basically what they're requesting.
okay. What about and further that?
I just noticed that we would need to add that full optimization to allow for the in-person agreement as well.
Okay, so it would be option number 3 and with the including paragraph and further that with the amendment with the 1 meter within that.
Correct.
And further that. Sure. I hear you making a motion for option number 3. How do I read this, Mr. Taylor? So I can properly do that. So will somebody please move that the development variance permit DVP 23006 at 341 Main Street, legally described as Lot A, Plan KAP 53464, District Lot 1588, Lillooet Land District, to vary the following provisions in the District of Lillooet zoning bylaw 2018 number 454. Number 3 as read, including and further that council authorize the district of corporate and development services to enter into an encroachment agreement to permit a maximum encroachment of 1 meter beyond the rear property line for a retaining wall in order to address liability on a public right of way.
Correct.
Good job.
Councillor Reeves, seconded by Councillor McNary. Any further questions? What?
There.
Okay.
The neighboring property, which is sort of, from what I understand, on the south end of the property, it shares sort of an open property line with the Friendship Center.
Correct.
And the Friendship Center is. As a bit of extra information on this.
Any further questions or comments? Okay, all in favor? All opposed?
Let's see.
You can't, that's a positive vote. If you abstain, then that's a positive affirmative.
Right. I'll vote in favor.
You're voting in favor, so we got 4 and
I'm in favor.
Councillor Klein opposed. Yeah. For the record, please. Okay, moving on to 12.2, DBP 23-007, 336 Mountain View Road variance to required improvements in the subdivision and development servicing bylaw. Mr. Taylor?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. DVP 23-007 is a request to vary the provisions of the subdivision and development servicing bylaw to facilitate a subdivision at 336 Mountain View Road. 336 Mountain View Road is a 0.57 acre lot in the R1 zone, which contains a single-family dwelling and a detached garage and workshop. The owner is working on connecting the property to the municipal sewer system and converting the workshop into a carriage house. The owner has applied to subdivide to create 2 additional fully serviced residential lots. The minimum lot size for subdivision in the R1 zone is 400 square meters when connected to services, which is supported by the official community plan land use designated description of low density residential. The subdivision requirements include replacing the pavement on Bouvette to the central line along the property frontage, construction of sidewalk, curb, and gutter along the same frontage, and installation of a storm drainage system. The Director of Public Works did do a visit to the property and determined that Bouvette was not in need of repaving at this time. If the road was in need of it, staff would not recommend waiving this requirement. However, this area and most areas in town do not have and likely never will have sidewalks. The draft SDS bylaw is looking to remove the requirement for sidewalks nearly everywhere except along Main Street and other pedestrian corridors. Finally, there is no existing storm system along that road to connect to, and the installation of that infrastructure would likely be unutilized and require replacement before a greater system is installed, if ever. I would like to remind council that this is not approval of the subdivision. Subdivision approval is not a council authority. This is just looking at the specific variance requests. While not granting the variance might make it difficult for the owner to subdivide, if they decide they wanted to proceed with these requirements, they would be able to undertake the subdivision with no additional council approvals, as the subdivision meets all other zoning requirements. Staff are recommending the DBP 23-007 be approved. Also in your package of correspondence received after the agenda was published on the green sheets, 1 form was in support and 5 forms received in opposition. Most of the opposition is against the subdivision itself and not about the requested variances. This includes that the lots are too small to support single-family dwellings, not wanting mobile homes in the neighborhood, not wanting this high density of lots, not wanting 2-story high homes, resulting in impact and views of existing homes and impact property values. Worried that there won't be enough room for on-site parking of vehicles, which will mean increased use of street parking and more traffic and congestion in the area. Limited sight lines around the corner for vehicles turning onto Bouvette Road. Concern about losing privacy, concern about bank stability, and concern about local construction taking place over several years. Madam Mayor, at this time, it is appropriate to open the floor to anyone who feels that their interests are impacted by this variance, starting with the applicant. Starting with the applicant.
Is he here?
I believe he is attending virtually.
Oh, is he? Okay.
Hello, Mayor and Council, and thank you so much for allowing me to attend virtually and speak my piece. I guess I've read the what people have sent in, and I guess I'm just ready to address if anyone has concerns I'd like to ask about. I'm ready to address those concerns or discuss them further.
Okay, I think one of the concerns was line of sight and driveways.
I don't really know. I'm not really actually sure to speak to the line of sight of the driveways themselves. They'll probably be the 2 drives I'm guessing are closer to the existing driveway, but I don't know if that would be a road safety concern, like a public works concern about line of sight. Nothing's been mentioned thus far from the district, so I'm assuming that this is all good.
Right.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. There are sightline triangle requirements within the zoning bylaws. So at time of building permit, we would review their siting of their property, and that would be the same for the access as well.
Excellent, thanks. Okay. Anybody else have any questions?
Open it up to the floor.
I will. Right,
In the whole proposal here, understanding here, on the 1 lot, that you're proposing well, we have nothing to say about the 3 lots you're putting, but on the 1 lot, you're gonna have 3 dwellings on that 1 lot?
No, sir. There's an existing family, a single family home. There is a 2-bay garage, which 3-bay garage, which is remaining as a garage. And there is another workshop, which was a commercial kitchen, which I'm turning into a carriage house. So there's 2 dwellings on that lot.
A carriage house on, that means somebody's gonna live there.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, we will be probably referring the new zoning bylaw as a carriage house, just a residential accessory building, similar to a secondary suite but detached. The reason it's not right now is because it is required to also be connected to sewer and water. So that's going to have to be contingent on that extension, which is already in the works.
Okay. So there'll only be two residents on that one lot, not 3.
That's the intention. Madam Mayor, at some point in the future, the zoning bylaw may change to also allow a carriage house and a secondary suite. I can't speak to that today.
Okay, can I open it up to the floor? Mr. Morton.
My name is John Michael Moore. I live at 268 Mountain View Road. Problem I'm having with this development is, the first thing I have a problem with is if you look at going up Mountain View Road and turning onto Babette Road, it's a very sharp turn and it's a blind turn. It's a blind turn. You have a limited access to see anybody coming out of a driveway, and it's actually quite awkward to go around that corner. At speed, you have to try and slow down, but maintain speed to keep going ahead. Because if you have another vehicle coming the other way, you actually swing out more or less into the other lane. That's one of the problems I have. And now you want to take this single lot with 1 residence on it, and now you want to have 4 residents on the 1 lot? I don't think so. I could see possibly having an addition of 1 more residence there, but to have 4 residences there, it's crazy. I mean, like, what are you going to put on there for the additional residents? A couple of 14-foot wide trailers? We don't really want that up there, do we? And the other thing is, when this happens, when we allow this subdivision like this, are we setting a precedence that, say, myself, I've got a lot that's X number of size that I can, and I do have back access on my lot, that I could take and say, oh, my shop, I'm going to turn that into another house, run the split down the middle here and have 2 pieces of property? I know we need housing, but how bad do we need it? And, you know, there is, well, I know one of the things I was against is, like, we're going to have 3 years of construction there. I just put up with over a year of Bob Banatter building his house down below me. And, you know, vehicles going up and down there. But if you had gone up and looked at this property, you'd have just shook your head and said, no way. It's just not feasible. And the other thing is parking there. You know, you're going to have vehicles parked in front of these 3 places that was originally 1.
But again, we're not questioning whether they can, we don't have any say on whether or not they can subdivide. They can go ahead and subdivide. Our job tonight is to agree with this variance, these 3 points on the variance.
I'm asking you not to agree with this variance. Thank you.
I live at the 23 14th Avenue, which is down below from the subdivision. And I would be opposed to 2 houses being built on it because of the pipeline at the corner of Buvette and Mountain View Road. Mountain View Road has become extremely busy with all of the traffic coming from Clequet and the people up on Buvette Road. And it's busier every day. And I could accept one house being set back from the corner, so the sightline is good. And so I am asking council not to approve the variance.
Thank you. Councilor McMahon.
Question to the developer. What's your options other than three, like we got no say in that, but we do have a say in the bylaws. What's your option, like, would, instead of making 3 lots, would 2 be okay? Like, could you make enough money to deal with it that way?
Well, first of all, it could well be my family home. So this is something that I'm also thinking about. I believe, and perhaps the district and Kevin can speak to this a little bit more, regardless of whether there's 1 lot or 2, due to the right-of-way embankment on the Mountain View Road side of the property, there's quite a large area setback, as well as on Bouvette Road, which cannot be built on. And so that cannot be, as far as sightlines go, I do not believe that that's irrespective of whether there's 1 block or 2. Those sightlines wouldn't change. Those setbacks are in place. But perhaps district could either confirm that.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. As part of the land surveyor's submission, they did take into account the bank that could not be built on. So the subdivision plan that was submitted to the approving officer and accepted with a preliminary approval, which is includes some of the provisions that he's looking to vary here today. Buildable areas, we usually look for a minimum of about 100 square meters of buildable area, even within a lot, because you could have a 1,000 square meter lot, but if you don't have at least a 100 square meter buildable area, then the lot might not be feasible subdivision. So as part of the application, which the approving officer accepted, they were able to demonstrate that minimum 100 square meter buildable area. These will be small lots. We do have smaller lots up on the heights that have been built on, and we do have some of those lots that are on corners as well.
Thank you. Can you clarify, Mr. Taylor, the first bullet point of this variance? So varied the requirement to construct Bouvette Road to the center line along the property frontage as prescribed in section 6.5 from required to not required.
Yes, as part of the subdivision, the SDS bylaw allows us to require repaving of the entire frontage of any subdivision. A lot of the time we'll try and take advantage of that. We just haven't had very many subdivisions that have been along areas that have needed that level of upgrade. Also, while we're trying to figure out our own work plan for what we're going to be repaving or not. We're also potentially looking at investigating development cost charges in DCC projects, which would identify specific roads for repaving. But keeping it to this variance on this property, the Public Works Director did go up there and determined that repaving of half the road at this time was not necessary.
See, and for me, the variance itself is, I agree that he shouldn't have to pave. I agree that he shouldn't have to build sidewalks because we don't have sidewalks in Lillooet. And I agree with the install a storm drainage system along Bouvette Road is not required. Like, I agree with all 3 of those points. I also agree with the fact that I think that this is there is an issue with seeing these things and being able to go around this corner and have safe entries and small lots. So I agree with that. But given what I'm given, I agree with the variance.
And
the points themselves, I agree with that. Councilor DeBruin.
I guess just a question of clarification on this process, because I'm new I can still say that, I think, I mean, my first year, anyway. So with regard to subdivision applications, that is outside our purview and goes to an approving officer. Can you describe a little bit about the public input process there, or the appeal process that is embedded in that application process?
No. Madam Mayor, the only public engagement processes is when the bylaws are initially put into place, such as the zoning bylaw, which that's the requirement for subdivision. Or if somebody has applied for a variance or needs to apply for a development permit if they're doing a multifamily building, strata building, which is also a type of subdivision. But just in terms of say a single lot split, we've had many out on the hot farm, there is no public engagement for those. The public engagement opportunity is when the zoning bylaw that stipulates those requirements are put into place, which is subject to a public hearing itself.
Because indeed, if you look at, and I've driven past many times, and if you look at this.
Hang on, you two.
You look at this lot, even though the physical lot properties exceed, 400 square meters. If you take out the right of way and the bank and that sort of stuff, there's very little left. And it's going to be a very tight and built up area as a consequence. And but I guess without any sort of anything that we can do on that subdivision, there's I'm not real sure what because I sympathize with everything that's been said. But I'm not real sure what we could do in that regard.
Councilman McNary, want to add to that?
My problem is I feel for the people that are talking and are against it and whatnot. What we're asking to get done here is we've done this for other people. And just because he wants to do 3 lots instead of 2 and the neighbors don't like it, I can't see how we can refuse this person.
Okay. Any further questions or comments? All right, will someone move that the development variance permit DVP 23007 for the proposed subdivision at 336 Mountain View Road, legally described as Lot 2, Block 2, Plan KAP 9622, Lillooet Land District, accept Plan KAP 52266 to vary the following provisions of the subdivision and development servicing bylaw 2007 number 286 be approved as written. Councillor Weed, Councillor McNary, all in favor? Opposed? How do you, or Councillor Plant, you're opposed? Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. If you could please turn off your camera and microphone at this point.
.3, Z23004 zoning amendment bylaw number 2023-011 to allow accessory building with no principal use in the RR1 at 110 Highway 12, third reading and adoption.
I'm so
Sorry, Mr. Taylor, I just muted you, but I can confirm that the variance was approved.
thank you so much. Thank you, Mayor and Council.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Z23-004 was one of the zoning subject of a public hearing that I presented on, and I have nothing additional to add.
Okay, thank you. Any questions, comments? Seeing none, will someone move that the District of Lillooet zoning bylaw 2018 number 454 amending bylaw number 2023-011 be read a third time? Councilor McNary, Councilor Reed, all in favor, carried. And that the District of Lillooet zoning bylaw 2018 number 454 amending bylaw 2023-011 be adopted. Councilor DeBruin, Councilor Flynn, all in favor, carried. Okay, 12.4 is the 23005 zoning amending bylaw number 2023-012 to rezone 1003 Main Street from C1 to RM, third reading and adoption. Any questions for staff?
Nothing to add from the public hearing.
Councilor McNary.
That was a lot that we're talking about that the old vet used to be in?
Correct.
Yes.
Yeah. That's what I thought.
Okay. Okay, will someone please move that the District of Lillooet zoning bylaw 2018 number 454 amending bylaw number 2023-012 be read a third time? Councilor McNary, Councilor DeBruin, all in favor? Carried. And that District of Lillooet zoning bylaw number 2018 number 454 amending bylaw number 2023-012 be adopted. Councilor DeBruin, Councilor McNary, all in favor? Good to go. Okay, 12.5. Z23-006, OCP amending bylaw number 2023-014 and zoning amending bylaw number 2023-013 to split zone 1824 Highway 99 North Agriculture and RR1 third reading.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Nothing to add from the public hearing. Just a reminder that staff are recommending that both of these bylaws be taken to third reading to give them approval in principle to be able to start assessing feasibility of this development.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. Any questions or comments? Councilor DeBruin.
And through the mayor, just remind us again why we're holding it up in third reading and final.
Thank you. If we do rezone it and amend the OCP the entire way, then we do end up with a split zone parcel. The OCP currently does suggest that keeping agricultural land is the more important policy, and it'll be hard to roll it back if we don't. So it's what we're suggesting is keeping it, avoiding the full transition until such time that we know it's feasible. If you decided to give it adoption at this point, the worst that would happen is that it would end up with a split zone parcel, and they could potentially build another house on that second portion because they're granted the development rights of both zones, even though they're a single parcel. So the world wouldn't end, but it's also it's really hard to take it back to that agriculture if you want to. Well, it's not very difficult. But
The steepness of that portion doesn't make it suitable for.
I think we should take it on.
There is an alternate option in the report if you wish to adopt both. Like one way or another on that. This is just practice. Sorry, planning practice. Yeah, not practice of myself.
Plan, do you have a question? No, it's not mine. Okay. Looking for
Maybe you should take a practice one.
Third reading or third and vote?
Okay.
Third reading.
Yes. Someone moved that the District of Lillooet official community plan 2020-040, amending bylaw 2023-014 be read a third time. Councillor Weed, Councillor DeBruin, all in favor? Carried. What would you guys like to do?
We need to amend OCP as well.
Perhaps, yeah, give third reading to the next bylaw as well, and then discuss whether you want to take it to adoption.
Great, so I need a motion that the District of Lillooet zoning bylaw 2018 number 454, amending bylaw number 2023 013 be read a third time. Councillor Weed. Councillor McNary, all in favor? Carried. Okay. So if I read, let's bear with me here, if I read the third one, then that's not the final one.
They have both been given third reading.
They've both been, so
Now it's as to whether council wishes to hold it third reading while we wait for a subdivision application and see if it's feasible, or just rezone the property and next year.
right, so how do I bring this forward? Do I bring this forward and then we vote it down, or like number 3, or do we just bring forward?
I just wouldn't do it if you don't want to do it, because if you vote it down, the bylaw dies.
Right, and we don't want to do that. Okay, so I think we're good.
I'm just reading number 3 again, to Mayor. If we vote this in for the third reading, or we vote it in for a final thing, now his old cars and stuff he has down on the bottom, would he have to remove those right away?
It wouldn't have to be immediate. They would be before we would be able to issue any building permits or finish the subdivision. And we have been speaking with the applicants, and they're in the process of doing it. And it's, I'm told it's more of a hobby than a wrecking yard.
It is.
So they are aware that they need to fix it before they'd be able to get any other development on there. But we can go ahead and rezone it and change the OCP.
Okay. I've known him for a long time and he's pretty slow.
Okay, so read number 3.
Yes. It'll be held at third reading. We want to keep it.
If that vote is defeated, it doesn't kill the bylaw. We would just keep it at third reading. But it's not voting against adoption.
It's not voting against it. Okay, so the bylaws number 2023-0313 and number 2023-014 be held at third reading until the applicant is ready to submit a subdivision application and can show compliance with the zoning bylaw in terms of derelict vehicles and the potential auto salvage use. Motions for me? Did I miss a line? Can show compliance with the zoning bylaw in terms of derelict vehicles.
And can provide more detail.
You're reading something else.
Yeah. Good. I have that too.
What?
I have the same thing.
So our system that generates our agendas has not been appropriately pulling over our staff recommendations onto the agenda cover page. So yes, on the actual report, there was an updated recommendation that didn't update me. It's becoming quite frustrating.
Okay, so I'm looking at page 93 and reading number 3 there.
Correct.
Okay, the bylaws number 2023-013 and 2023-014 be held at third reading until the applicant is ready to submit a subdivision application and can provide more detail relating to the proposal and can show compliance with the zoning bylaw in terms of derelict vehicles at the potential auto salvage use. Councillor DeBruin, second Councillor Plant. Have any further questions or comments? All in favor? Notice of motions. Going to go on to the mayor's report. June 28th, 29th, SLRD residents of electoral A areas A and B in the district of Lillooet. And I'm just going to wait to tell Debbie this. Will soon be asked to provide input into the services provided at the Lillooet landfill. As the landfill is supported by area A, B, and the district, operational services pertain to those areas. There will be a community engagement process to discuss what the community would like when it comes to the landfill, and a date has not yet been decided, but will be shared when it is. So I'll let the color know that. Area A, Goldbridge announced that school is now open from K to 12. Families are happy. Kids no longer have to attend high school so far away. Lillooet Food Bank will receive $5,000 from electoral area A from the Philip Fund in memory of former SLRD electoral A area director Russ Oakley. We had the SLRD asset management completed. That's always an eye opener, but it also enlightened me about natural assets that contribute to our sources of infrastructure like creeks to the water treatment plant, which more and more communities are also looking at. SLRD will also meet with the ministries at UBCM. I will be meeting with the Ministry of Health for the SLRD to discuss Lillooet Hospital and the region that serves. July 1st, Canada Day, great turnout. Can't thank the volunteers enough. Thank you, Councillor Flan, who is enormous help. And Chief Sid Scotchman, who also I think should have won the Best Dressed Award because it certainly was. And I'll let Councillor Flan share the rest of the details. But I also like to add that I think Councillor Flan does a great job representing Marion Council on Facebook. So I went to put this on Facebook and I just realized she had, and it was much better than what I said. So I want to ask her to continue to do that. And I'm just going to steal it off your page, or if I can just share it, if that's okay with you. I don't know. I think she did a good job on that. So, and I noticed that there's no new toilet seats in the women's washrooms here. I don't know if you guys noticed that, but they're all new toilet seats in the rooms.
I never went in there yet.
I know. You might notice that there might be some in yours. I don't know. I won't go in there to check, but I did notice that there's new ones in ours. Thanks.
I just got a quick update. I attended the NDIT RAC meeting, Regional Advisory Committee or something, in the replacing Councillor B, and very interesting. Lots of great discussion about programs that NDIT puts on, and then we had a session where we had to give away money. Give away money to applicants. That's
what does that stand for, the NDIC?
Northern Development Initiative Trust, which was formed in the 80s or 90s when BC Rail was sold to CN, and the revenues from that sale were partially put into a trust. There's a Vancouver Island Trust, there is a Northern Development Trust, and a Southern Interior Trust somewhere, or Southwest. And the trust has a mandate to support its coverage area, and we're just inside the coverage area through economic development initiatives, but also through infrastructure. So there were applications for upgrades to campgrounds. There were applications for signage, a community hall upgrade, like all these things that come forward. So yeah, and at this time, there was more, sizably more applications than we had money, so we had to. And that's sort of difficult to say no, but that's, and sadly, there was nothing from our region or our area in the applications that they have in other times, but this time there wasn't. But communities, Williams Lake, 100 Mile, Ashcroft, and that sort of stuff. The northern Prince George, that sort of stuff. Is that correct?
How much cash was there?
I forget. 300, 400,000, something like that. And they do quarterly. So essentially they have a trust. So it's, I forget the number, like $90 million or something like that. And they, from the interest or whatever the investment income that they generate, they divvy out so much. And obviously the investment income hasn't been very good given where stock markets are. And so there wasn't, as much money as they had hoped. But it is a perpetual fund, so they don't draw down that number. So the big number will always stay there.
Just Canada Day. It was a great day. There was probably around about 400 people. There was such a diverse group of ages and backgrounds, and it was wonderful. There was flags, there was food, there was cake, there was music, dancing, face painting, family fun. It was a good day. I enjoyed seeing all the kids there and how much fun they were having. They were dancing and eating and singing and eating and getting their faces painted and more eating and pick up games and tag, like kids were running around. And it was also nice, all the parents were keeping an eye on all the kids. So if someone say, hey, where's such and such, someone else would pipe up, oh, they're over there with whatever. So it was like a real community feel there. Everybody was looking out for everybody and everybody was talking. I don't know, it was great. It couldn't have been done without all the volunteers. We had Bob Sheridan and his staff from Philo. Amber McCabe from Timber March donated face painting and balloons and everything there. The band Sofa King, they did awesome. They had music. Everybody was, well, not everybody, but lots of people were up dancing. Had Rosie and Chet, which they were very entertaining. The kids absolutely loved them. And then we had sort of a real small core group of volunteers as well, who we just couldn't have done without all the running around. So we had Frank Hopful and Ted Flan they cooked over 450 hot dogs for the day there. And then Gina Doyle, Beth Grosser, and Fallon Flan, they were just everywhere helping out where they could. And I don't know, the day just came together really good. Also, Paulo Torrero, rec center, he was there with tables and chairs, and he found this huge freaking big Canadian flag as a background there. Lots of bus tours. There are actually bus tours. I had quite a few conversations with the Australian contingency. I found out there was an Aussie here, so but taking photographs and everything. It was just a really good day. I also spent a lot of time there with the Lillooet Hospital and Health Survey, speaking with people there and getting those signed up. So that was sort of the start of the rollout for that, and it went really well. Lots of really good conversations with people. So that was sort of my part. And then just on the side note, I've had quite a few people mention how impressed they are with all the children's programs that are being offered this summer. Between the hub and the rec center and the library, there's lots going on for kids that parents can sign up for different programs. And I have had quite a few comments saying that they're so happy to see those sort of things rolling out again. Yeah, that's me.
And I'd just like to add that Canadian flag that I don't know where it came from. It's huge. It's just huge. And yeah, it ended up being a photo shoot at the end. People were getting their photos taken with it. It was,
I started that with my 2 grandkids.
did you?
Well, between the flag.
Yeah,
and
that
then
was,
the-
that was incredible. I saw girls up there and then,
Between
yeah.
the flag and the big Canadian cake that Philo did, they were
That was
just
huge.
a huge photo ops there. Yeah, the bus tours loved it. They were so impressed and surprised that it was a free event.
Yeah.
They don't see that there, so. I'm done now.
Okay, Councilor McNary.
I don't have any reports. I gotta go to a deal. Thursday for the TNRD. Other than that, I took part in Canada Day thing by showing up. With a hot dog and then guided some kids around there. I would like to know if we should put a thank you in the paper for all the volunteers, music and whatnot. It's just a thought and process that.
Okay.
Because there was a lot of volunteers. I'm not one of them, but it was pretty impressive. That's what I can tell you.
We do have a budget for council advertising that would fall under, that would need additional approval.
Councilor Weeks.
I have nothing. Amazing. And thank you, Councillor Bruin, for taking my meeting. I did go and have a minor back surgery. My daughter came out to help for the week. And don't know if it's worked or not worked, but we shall move on.
All right.
Doesn't sound like convincing.
CAO report, acting CAO report.
Yeah, and I would just like to say that since the upgrades in the park have been finished, we have seen a rather large uptake in people requesting to use the park for various events. There was the farmers market, night market, did hold their first event there, as well as the Hacklet held a community events in Downton Park on the 5th. Last week, and I have touched base with the farmers market, and they were thrilled with how it worked. And I believe that they're planning on hosting another farmers market on the 28th of July.
Night market?
Night market. Down there. They seem to like to take advantage of the festive lighting that is down there. Other than that, the mayor stole my thunder with the toilet seats. So
Was there some thunder on the toilet seat?
Wow.
Now raise the toilets and we got our name.
Okay, any new business? I think there was 17.1, the firework. Okay, let's go back to that. And it was council plan that pulled that. So what page, just let's get that. 39 of the agenda. And thank you, Chief Wakey, for sending out those few pages of our existing bylaw. Appreciate it. Okay.
Yeah, lost words now. It is, considering with this letter here, it really is surprising how dry everything still is in the fall. And we really are lucky that we don't have more incidents than what we do at Halloween and also at New Year's with fireworks. The near misses over the years, thankfully, haven't been too bad because of our fire department and also residents who are very quick thinking on things here. But if you think that we have 3 or 4 large mishaps, there's not enough to go around to actually do that. But also on top of this with the conversation is I want to turn it around to what fireworks do to the animals and livestock and the wildlife. Every Halloween, animals disappear because of fireworks. They're terrified of the noise and they just go on a blind run. Livestock are affected. I know I've personally had to try and calm down horses which have absolutely no idea. They don't want to cooperate, they're just in a blind run. Wildlife gets frightened. They've been known to abandon all of their young and not come back to it. So it is, fireworks are not good for our forests, for our animals, or anything else there. I'm just going to say this past weekend, we were startled awake by fireworks. Sounded like there was with all the windows open, sounded like there was gunshots going off in the street. And then suddenly we remembered our dogs. And running outside to try and find 2 large breed dogs, which are over 110 pounds each, getting them into the house and then trying to convince them to get out from under the bed or behind the couch, which is a space like this, and the dogs are this big. And then spending the rest of the night every hour with them wanting to go outside to go, nope, it's still too scary. I don't know. I'm in agreement with Mr. and Mrs. Ratch with their letters saying that I would like to see residential fireworks suspended indefinitely. Just keep it to our District 1 for Halloween there, because you've got the professionals doing it. They're a different class of firework. And that's just me. Don't know how we can do that, but between fires and animals, they're not good.
Well, yeah, like I said in my email, I'm opposed myself. I don't think it has a place. People are oblivious of what they do. We've had instances where people are firing off in August, caused a fire that we had to respond to. They just do not know the dangers of that. And it is highly, they're not good. And most communities are revisiting this whole issue. City of Kamloops is actually revisiting that right now. And we did see actually a decrease in last year, the year before. City of Kamloops put an outright ban. No one was allowed to sell fireworks at all. And we saw the effects of that. And we saw lesser fireworks in our community because they're just coming in. The other side of things, like I said in the email, we have to convince our neighbors to stop selling them. We have houses that are absolutely full during the time. A house, the basement full of fireworks, not following regulations that we are imposing on our commercial businesses and not knowing. If there's a house fire there, we walk into something like that, it's dangerous. But they're selling these out of their basement to whomever, right? And it's not a good situation.
They're doing that in town?
Not in town, no. When it's the surrounding communities, right? And we don't have any way to monitor that or anything like that. And I've spoken to community leaders about that, and there doesn't seem to be an appetite to look at that and say, hey, it's not acceptable in our community, right? So how do we govern that, right? So again, by having those community discussions about that, and like Councillor Flanagan said, I believe it belongs in the commercial hands. They have a huge course that they have to take and do that. Let them invest, let the community members invest in something like that, donate to that. It'll be a bigger show and it's a lot more safe. Again, fireworks anytime other than October 31st by our bylaw is illegal. Carte blanche, but we still get it. We don't get reports of that. The other side of things, it's hard for me to govern that and look at that. RCP are not on all the time. We are definitely not on all the time with bylaw enforcement, and I'm one person that can go out at these requests, right? So I don't know what to do other than say it has to be banned. Like we're absolutely in a point now, and Councillor Flanagan's right. We have had forest fires in the middle of January, February, because of the drying trends, and that's a reality. You take a look at in Colorado last year, entire community, I think it was 30 homes or so burned to the ground because of a wildfire in January. And the next day it was 12 inches of snow. Because it's a curing, drying cycle in there, it becomes just like in the middle of summer, just dry cured grasses. It then goes, and it's in a worse state because we have all of our equipment that's winterized, the water isn't in the systems, all that. It's impossible for us to fight those types of fires. And this is what happens, right? That's why I'm not to be a party pooper or whatever on New Year's Eve.
I hate fireworks on New Year's because it scares the hell out of me for that particular reason. People firing them off in residential areas, the litter debris landing on the house afterwards, and you talk to people that have been around, you will hear it raining debris on. That incident that Ms. Rash spoke about, Mr. Taylor was the brunt of that. And the litter debris on the roofs that we had seen all around the houses, it states on that document on the firework that, oh, it's a 30-foot radius of rain. It was over 85 to 90 feet away, the debris that was spread out. So it isn't what they're saying on the packages advertising. It's way beyond that, and it becomes a hazard. So we get litter debris inside gutters, then we have house fires happening, all that kind of stuff. People, we've done this so far with voluntary compliance in mind and not trying to be party groupers, but we cannot trust the small handful of people to do that. And unfortunately, I think it's the way, right? It needs to be put back into the commercial usage. Let the professionals deal with it, right? I could give some examples of things, and one of the examples was an open field that people could go to and stuff, but it's going to have some adverse effect. Not my neighborhood. I don't want crowds of people blowing up fireworks in my neighborhood, right? To a field or whatever. So you're going to have to decide on how we keep this, right? But yeah, it's just, we're not meant for fireworks in this area, right?
Thank you for your insight and perspectives. It's an issue everywhere, and because it, particularly in urban areas, it can create many hazards, including toxic fumes and that sort of stuff. But here in rural BC, we're a little bit more lucky because it's so widespread. But then there's the issues that we have with pets, wildlife, and domestic animals. And I see a little bit of a problem with commercial fireworks, which is much louder. and having lived on a property where was the base of where the fires were lit off, I can tell you that my cat and dog did not like that day, but it was manageable because we knew what was going to happen. So we had measures in place in order to mitigate that. And I think that's the nice thing about commercial fireworks is that it is planned from 8 o'clock to 8:35. And after that, while if it's in the middle of the night and some private individual setting off fireworks, then you have no preemptive warning to manage your animals in a way that is conducive. So yeah, I would be all in favor for just commercial fireworks, but I don't know whether or not if you put it on paper, whether it's actually going to work.
What if we get
Drones would be great.
Okay, so do we want to bring this bylaw back to the table for reconsideration? I think we should. I would like to ban them altogether, personally.
Me too, but I thought
I
that
have
was a
had-
little bit too much to go.
I know. I have had debris on my deck and the fireworks. There was alcohol involved, and they were setting them off at the school, which makes it twice as dangerous. I'm lucky I have a 30-pound dog, so he fits under the bed. A little easier to contain, but yeah, I don't know if they do it at the rec center lawn or where you pick a spot. But I think it definitely should be contained where somebody, and you're still gonna have the ones that do their thing. I find there's a lot of use prior to with those, I don't know, they sound like bear bangers. They just bang, 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 all the way down the street. It drives me insane. And my dog did that.
Yeah, like bang, 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 bang. And I'm up and like, oh my God, the dogs. My husband is like, is that a gun?
No, honey, I missed you.
Still live.
My-
Still live.
My dogs are used to it, so,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, I shoot all the time.
Pampered.
Okay, so, somebody want to make a motion to bring the bylaw back or? Okay. Yes.
I'm gonna recommend a very broad motion, that will give staff a little more ability to look at best practices and what our neighboring communities are doing. So just that staff prepare a draft bylaw to regulate fireworks. Full stop. We will take a look at what everyone's doing, bring it to first reading. That's when you really get into it, decide if you think it's too much or not enough. It'll go back to staff to amend the draft with anything you decide you want to change in it, and then come back to you for consideration.
Can I ask
I
you,
like
if
that.
something does happen, can we put something in a bylaw, like if something does happen and the house burns down and they're illegal, like if they're doing it on a day where they don't have permission or permit or whatever, can we find them?
In this instance, then they were fines. We do have a fine in there. It's not a huge fine, but it is a fine.
It's fine.
So I believe it's for inappropriate use or.
That's not in a dangerous manner.
Yeah.
Discharging dangerous manner.
So I think that if we,
Where does the money go?
if there's different amounts though, that we can do, I'd like to know if there's a minimum and a maximum that we could do, that we could set.
The bylaw notice enforcement bylaw does allow us to set a range, and then beyond that, it's the municipal ticketing information bylaw. If we want to go higher than that, again, we will look at what the other communities are doing.
I appreciate that. Yeah. Just I really think that we need a deterrent as well. Go ahead, sorry.
Sorry for interrupting. My mind gets ahead of my mouth. Anyways, where does the money go that, for the fines?
General revenue.
General revenue? Is there something there, like if it causes destruction or something like that? Is there something there that, like if you burn half the neighbor's house down, or you burn this, like they burnt the hedge down and whatnot, who's responsible for that?
That would be between the owner whose property is damaged, their insurance company, and then who they decided to try and reclaim those damages from.
So it's got nothing to do with the town. Can the town do something there to help them?
I wouldn't advise it. I think the best thing the town can do is to put in some stronger requirements so that if people are lighting them off contrary to the bylaws, then that gives the property owner and their insurance company a little more leverage through the regulations that are already in place.
Because I know that, like, I'm kind of involved in that at my place, because when there's lots of fishermen down in the river and that, I can't shoot. That it's, there are lots of people in there. So I used a bear banger. In the summertime, I can't use either. So I go do it by hand all the time. But like, I don't want to cause fires, but at the same time, if I used a bear banger and somebody decided that that's illegal and they come and start fining me for it, can they do that? Because I'm protecting.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We did do that in Summerlands, where I used to work, where people were using bear bangers in the middle of a dry season where it wasn't permitted. Because it is most farmers trying to protect their crop, it was usually a warning first. Don't do it again. And then if they continued, ticketed. I'm not sure what the past practice is.
Because the other option is bullets. Mm-hmm. What is, I mean, you got to use your head one way or the other.
It's really, it comes down to, is there a complaint and is it contrary to the bylaw?
I'm just curious because
Again, we can look to see what other communities do for agricultural properties, if there's any additional exemptions that can go on for an agricultural property, but I think we're going to focus on the sale of fireworks.
have a look at the agriculture, because I'm a confident on, and I don't want to be chasing Darren off the place with a stick.
Probably doesn't want to go there.
Oh, but I mean, That, I want to try to keep it between the lines for sure. Because they've always run on the outside.
Okay, any further comments or questions for subject one?
The motion hasn't actually been moved yet, just.
Oh.
I will move the motion.
Move the motion. Second motion. All in favor? Great, again, over. Finish with that. 1. Meeting is open to questions from the media and public. There might be somebody up there, there's anonymous guest.
If there's anybody attending virtually who would like to ask a question at this point, please unmute your microphone and your camera.
Okay. Somebody please move that the July 11th, 2023 regular council meeting be adjourned. Councilor Clan, seconded by Councilor McNary, all in favor? Great.
Save paper anymore.
What's that?
Refuse to save paper anymore. If you go in where the bowling alley used to be.
Yeah.
Probably get a Sears and a whole.